Police at the other end.
In this video, we'll be utterly ripping to shreds the recent episode of Panorama about e-bikes as reported by Adrian Chiles. This Adrian Chiles.
I'd be furious if I was him, Patrick.
You are wrong.
But not everyone on the documentary was wrong about e-bikes, so let's take a closer look at the episode. We'll dissect everything that was wrong with it, but also outline the things that Mr. Chiles got right, because there was a few. To all new viewers, welcome to the e-VRC, where we are predominantly an e-bike review channel, but I do like to get involved with a bit of discussion. However, I possess the strangely rare human ability to be totally unbiased, which is why I often end up on the fence in daily discussions. So despite me loving e-bikes and Adrian Chiles being a Baggies fan, let's begin. So on an episode of Panorama named E-Bikes, the Battle for Our Streets, Adrian Chiles talked all about e-bikes. I didn't see it when it was released, but a few viewers have been in touch telling me that I need to give it a watch. The general consensus was that it was totally demonising e-bikes and gave a totally unbalanced account without sharing many of the positives that e-bikes bring to people that maybe other forms of transport, including push bikes, can't. So I gave it a watch. So straight away, it opens with e-bike riders crashing into pedestrians and whizzing by without a care for anyone. Then Adrian gets on a bike for the first time.
This is my first time on an e-bike. They're almost too easy to get used to.
He's an absolute doddle to ride. It's just a cheat.
He says it's too easy, it's cheating. Now, I'm sure that if you met Adrian Chiles in real life, he'd be a really nice guy. Here he is, just trying to talk about the weather with some ex-footballers.
That's something we can debate long into the night. When does a heavy rain become an actual downpour?
Poor guy, he just wanted to talk about the rain on a football show. Now, I'm not going to wait until the end of the video to say this, since this is 2025 and people don't watch all the way till the end, but Adrian Chiles was sort of won over by e-bikes.
I'm torn between thinking, blimey, this is fun. I wish I had one of these when I was a kid, to thinking, bit dangerous in the wrong hand. Now, though, I can really see their value. They're a good thing.
But that last clip is a problem. It's like he wanted to do the Jeremy Clarkson thing where he reviews a car, moans about all the little problems, and then in the end says,
But this is so much more fun because it's just road, seat, arse. The end.
Unfortunately, all he did was cobble together a load of clips and sound bites that make e-bikes look bad.
There are e-bikes shooting around all over our towns and cities. To my mind, it's all a bit hairy.
He said e-bikes were everywhere and then showed us a scene of all sorts of bikes. I mean, he could have just used a clip of a high street in Beijing and said the same thing. I do have it on good authority that there are loads of bicycles in Beijing, but if Katie Melua is in fact incorrect, then I do apologise. Now, to be fair to him, he did throw in a few positives.
If your route's too hilly, or you're going to get too sweaty, or it's too hot, then why would you ride a bike? Why would you want to arrive to work when you need a shower and there's no shower at work? And e-bikes fix a lot of those problems.
It's not the biggest positive. I'd argue saving the planet or reducing car collisions would be a bigger positive, but not being a sweaty mess when you arrive to work is very important to many people. Now, before we get too far into the video, on the off chance there are some people watching who don't actually know much about e-bikes, let's classify them really quick. To be classed as an e-bike or electrically assisted pedal cycle, EAPC, your bike has to, well, let's let Adrian tell us.
The law says you've got to be at least 14 to ride an e-bike. And for it to be road legal, it can't have a motor more powerful than 250 watts. And that motor should only work while you're pedaling, not by pressing a button.
Now, I'll be honest, when I was a student, I used to watch Working Lunch, which was the first time I saw Adrian Chiles on TV. I actually liked his irreverent take on the news and politics, even though I wasn't really into politics. But I found him an entertaining watch whilst I ate my super noodles.
A quarter of us lack the skills we need to do our jobs properly, as regular viewers to the show will know. And
later on, he started hosting football programmes, and it was clear that none of the pundits actually respected his views. He used to talk nonsense, and it didn't work.
Were you strong in a defensive war, Martin? I can imagine you in the war with your glasses on, sort of flinching a little bit like Benzema did, or did you stand strong?
Which is probably why we don't see him do football anymore. One of the problems with this episode of Panorama is that Panorama is a serious BBC programme talking about serious issues. At least that's what people think it is. He admitted that he entered the e-bike world grumpy, and to be honest, it shows. He keeps peppering the programme with his own negative opinions.
I'd rather try and get on the M6 in the rush hour.
I wouldn't want to hit a pothole at top speed.
But people are going to take in these little comments as if they're gospel. Oh yes, those potholes would be dangerous for e-bikes. Well yeah, they would. And they would for cars and push bikes. And don't even mention e-scooters with wheels that would actually disappear inside a pothole. I love e-scooters, by the way. We hear about local councils having to try to reach a net zero carbon footprint, and that often their answer is to introduce e-bike rental schemes. This means that rental e-bikes are everywhere, and to be fair, they didn't mention the fact that just like rental e-scooters, people can leave them wherever they want, and they often litter the pavement, blocking pedestrians, including people with pushchairs, prams, or wheelchairs that may struggle to get past them. But you know, some councils, they introduce push bike rental schemes as well as the aforementioned e-scooter rental schemes. All of these can clutter pavements. This isn't just an e-bike issue, this is a vehicle rental implementation and people issue. People can be lazy, but you know, these lazy people that leave their bikes on the pavement, well, they had to give away their payment details. This issue could easily be fixed. I won't dwell on the abandoned e-bikes since it wasn't really mentioned, but sticking to the video, let me know in the comments whose fault this was. The e-bike rider in the road, or the guy with the umbrella who didn't stop, look, or listen. Rental e-bikes are legal EAPCs after all, meaning that by design, they travel at the average speed of a push bike. Even if it was the rider's fault, which I'm not sure it was, the exact same thing could have happened with a Pendleton Somerby. That's a Halford's e-bike with a basket.
Our members are frightened by e-vehicles on pavements. They come up behind you fast. They don't expect you to step sideways, and it's normal behaviour for a pedestrian to suddenly turn sideways.
Now, e-bikes aren't sentient, nor do they have any artificial intelligence. E-bikes don't ride on pavements. E-bikes don't ride too fast on pavements. E-bikes don't know whether people suddenly move left or right. It's people that choose to do all of those things. And the same people with a push bike would most likely act in exactly the same way. Yes, they might be a bit lighter, but they'll also be quieter. And the vast majority of e-bikes are sold with bells and buzzers, whereas push bikes aren't. However, I cannot condone any adult riding on the pavement quickly, as in above 5 miles per hour, around people. For one, it is illegal. Kids under 10 are allowed to ride their bikes on pavements, fair enough, we don't want them in the road. But for riders above that, it is illegal. Now, I'm not calling out every rider who's ever ridden on the pavement. I've done it, I still do it, but around people, I slow right down or stay well clear. It can be dangerous to ride in the road in city centres, especially when the cycle lanes aren't there. If you're scared of the road and decide to go on the pavement, you will be breaking the law. It's likely that you won't get into trouble, but definitely don't go whizzing about. But again, Panorama portrays this as an e-bike problem. No, it's a people problem. Whether they're on e-bikes, e-scooters, pedal bikes, push scooters, it's illegal for all of these people to be on the pavement. So police should clamp down on anyone going fast on the pavement.
You go on pavements where people weren't walking.
They're very dangerous if they could knock you flying.
E-bikes don't go on pavements, people go on pavements. Who cares about the wattage of their e-bike? If they're being dangerous, then go get them, e-bike or not. But don't blame it on robot e-bikes that don't understand pedestrian behaviour. By the way, pedestrians aren't a special race of people that like to move slowly about whilst taking in brutalist architecture. People on e-bikes can also be pedestrians. It's just that the ones that go fast are also idiots. Later we see a crash involving an e-bike with a kid on a scooter crossing the road. Again, this is not an e-bike issue. There are loads of push bikers that skip the lights. It's actually a bit of a stereotype that the riders in Lycra with the fast road bikes do it all the time. Well, actually, so do car drivers and motorcyclists, i.e. it's not a vehicle specific problem. It's a person specific problem. Idiots do it. This e-biker definitely shouldn't be skipping the lights, but they didn't do it because of the e-bike. They did it because as a person, they're careless or ignorant. I'm pretty sure the kid was okay, otherwise it would have been all over the news, so hopefully I'm not kicking anyone whilst they're down. But in this clip, no one is looking. Not the rider, not the child, who to be fair we wouldn't expect to, but neither was the parent either. They were just letting them ride off into the distance on a main road. The rider was most at fault for skipping the light, and it would be nice to think that you shouldn't have to be vigilant as a pedestrian in this situation, but you do, especially with kids on scooters. It was sad to see there was a segment about a 91-year-old man who was unfortunately killed by someone riding an e-bike on the pavement. Obviously this poor man was not at all at fault here. He simply wanted to put his bins out. But also, let's not weaponise his story against e-bikes. His daughter said they live on a hill. All bikes can get to 30 miles per hour on a hill, and that's fast. And again, the rider was not only breaking the law, but being extremely reckless, riding at high speed on the pavement. This was absolutely the rider's fault and nothing to do with the vehicle he was riding. By the way, why is Daily Telegraph's Stephen Bird commenting on everything as if he's an authority on probability in transport?
If e-bikes are going to become more popular, if people are more attracted to them as a form of travel, then there is a greater likelihood that pedestrians are going to be involved in collisions with them.
So you're saying that if there's more people on e-bikes, then there will be more e-bike crashes? Well, thanks for that insightful addition. If they're letting reporters pretend they're experts, why not just use this guy? Now, this guy I'd listen to. This is another problem with the episode. There are too many people presented as authorities giving fear-mongering sound bites that don't only apply to e-bikes, like this crash expert from Switzerland.
We noticed the rise in accidents involving e-bikes due to their increasing popularity, but also sometimes the improper usage.
Only he's not a crash expert, he's just a guy who works for an insurance company. Yes, this is what happens to someone on an e-bike crashing at 15 miles per hour. Pretty similar to someone on a push bike crashing at 15 miles per hour, except they might be wearing Lycra, like this guy. E-bikes are actually a victim of their own success. They're brilliant. They allow people who wouldn't ordinarily be able to get around to get out the house, to the shops, to work, whatever they want. Like two commenters on my channel, Desert Dan, who is an injured veteran, and Stevie G, who has a heart condition. And yes, as said before, all those people who want to get to work without being sweaty. People who couldn't before can now go on a bike ride with their families. It's not always about commuting. Some people just want to get out for their mental health, but need that extra push. Literally. But why are there so many e-bikes? Because they're great and often inexpensive, and every e-bike rider is someone who would either be a pedestrian, a driver, a passenger, or stuck in their house. E-bikes give freedom to those people who otherwise wouldn't have it. But if councils want to introduce e-bike rental schemes, then they need to make sure they have the infrastructure to accommodate them. Yes, they shouldn't be ridden on the pavements, so make the roads safe for them. And if you can't, then you're not ready for rentals. Answer me this though, would you rather have a reckless person on an e-bike or in a car? In a car, they're faster, heavier, and possibly responsible for adults.
When I started, it was quite good. I was earning a decent amount each week. But as time's gone by, I've noticed more and more riders. It feels like every time I come to the centre, I see a new face.
Yeah.
And
so there's too many riders, which is annoying everybody. It annoys the riders because there's not enough work to go around.
Now, Adrian does show us some good points here. Delivery riders have been cause of some of the most common complaints when it comes to e-bikes. There are a lot of them and they do tend to ride pretty quickly. And because they're constantly flip-flopping from high street restaurants to residential areas, they're obviously going to be on pavements. They shouldn't be riding so fast. But as Mr. Charles points out, the faster they go, the more they get paid. And people need money these days. Things have gotten expensive, but again, this isn't the fault of the e-bike. From Amazon warehouse pickers, GPs, supermarket checkout workers and beyond, people are under pressure to work fast. But delivery riders, more so. It really does pay more to be quicker. So maybe the policies of the delivery companies need to change.
There's no spot checks that you know.
They used to do spot checks. But now you don't see it. They do need people out here checking bikes.
Companies are apparently meant to check the bikes, then fine them if they're allowing riders to ride on illegal bikes or those which are just too fast. Or maybe companies could have a minimum quota for deliveries, which is very achievable on a push bike or legal e-bike, then the riders could get paid by the hour instead. But how is someone rushing around the fault of an object? The object being the e-bike. Later on in the delivery segment, they attack throttles. Now, too many people don't understand that throttles don't make e-bikes faster. They allow a bike to go slower. That's why they're called a throttle. But that's for another video. I've already made a video all about throttles on e-bikes and why it's ridiculous that they're illegal. So this part very much annoyed me.
There's police at the other end. You're making it worse.
The courier gets away because he's on an e-bike with a throttle. The the officers having to pedal.
No, he didn't get away because he had a throttle and the officer had to pedal. He got away because the officer loudly papped his horn to let him know he was coming. By the way, you might be thinking that a throttle allowed him to get off the mark quickly. Well, actually, throttles that work up to 4 miles an hour are legal, so he could have just used a legal throttle to push off. He then started pedaling, meaning by the time he reached 4 miles per hour, the pedal assist power would have kicked in. He most likely got away because he had an e-bike that could go well over 15.5 miles per hour, but not because he had a throttle. Don't come at throttles, Mr. Childs. But the delivery riders highlight another problem with the episode. They lump illegal e-bikes alongside legal e-bikes. The whole episode is about the scourge of e-bikes, where really it should be about the scourge of reckless cyclists and reckless cyclists on illegal e-bikes. Here's some kids terrorising people doing wheelies on their illegal e-bikes. Absolutely, they shouldn't be doing this. They're on illegal e-bikes, they're being extremely reckless, and they don't have a regard for other road users. They also might not be kids. And by the way, these bikes, they're not actually really e-bikes, they're electric motorcycles with pedals, and they're way faster than a moped. Whoever they are, if they weren't doing it on illegal e-bikes or motorcycles, they'd be doing it on mopeds or scramblers. That's what they did before, and some still do now. E-bikes haven't made this kind of behaviour more accessible. Quite often kids can get those little scramblers pretty cheap off their mate's cousin. These electric motorcycles with pedals they ride are actually really expensive. The scramblers were also louder and usually faster. But again, it's a people problem and not an e-bike problem. People are purchasing illegal e-bikes and using them in dangerous ways. Now, I'm not going to judge someone for purchasing an illegal e-bike. I often go to America to test them out. In the same way that marijuana can help someone with pain and anxiety, an e-bike with a more powerful motor can help someone who lives in hilly areas get around where a legal e-bike maybe couldn't. And it's not all about going faster. I do think the current e-bike laws are very limiting, but luckily they are being reviewed, so hopefully they're going to help a lot of people when they do. But in the same way that someone could buy a set of knives from Argos and use them in the wrong way, people can do the same with illegal e-bikes.
No surprise the injuries are so severe. E-bikes, after all, are bigger, faster and heavier than normal bikes.
Again, he's confusing legal and illegal e-bikes. Legal e-bikes are in many instances slower than push bikes, as they can be very hard to pedal past 15.5 miles per hour due to motor resistance and extra rolling resistance in the case of fat tyre e-bikes. Are they really bigger, heavier and faster? Well, if they're legal, then no. Bigger and heavier is mostly the same thing, by the way, but of course 3 characteristics sounds more impactful than 2. But if a legal e-bike is bigger or heavier, then it will most likely be slower than a push bike ridden by someone of average fitness. And since momentum equals mass times velocity, the momentum of a legal e-bike could actually be similar to a push bike, since extra weight will result in a reduced speed. However, admittedly, a heavier bike at 15 miles per hour will have more momentum than a lighter bike at 15 miles per hour. But again, it's really illegal e-bikes that will have lots more momentum, since they will most likely be heavier and faster. Here's Adrian, hopefully on private land with the landowner's permission, being told that every single e-bike he is looking at is in fact illegal, since they either have a throttle or because the motors are much more powerful than 250 watts.
If you can't beat them, join them. Time to have a go.
I don't have to wear a helmet to ride it?
No, you don't, but I would recommend you do.
He seems shocked that you don't need to wear a helmet. Well, no, you don't need a helmet because e-bikes are meant to go at push bike speed, and often they're usually slower, like I said, and there's no law to wear a helmet on push bikes. There are no laws about illegal e-bikes since, well, they're illegal, so you don't have laws about illegal things. Apart from that, they're illegal. Now let's look at one of the interesting things the episode does bring up. He finds a website that offers illegal e-bikes on the Cycle to Work scheme. That's crazy. The Cycle to Work scheme is great. You get to purchase the bike with your pay from your job before it's paid to you, so then you don't get taxed on that portion of your pay, so you end up saving about 40% of the bike's price. But why does it work with illegal e-bikes? And maybe that's a loophole that the government need to close. He doesn't really say anything about this discovery, just that it's possible and that it's not meant to work like that.
It's not supposed to work like this.
And I think I'll use that decent factoid to sum up the episode. I did enjoy it, mainly because it's about e-bikes and I find people's views on them interesting, whether they're positive or negative. But all it was a load of clips without much substance. Cecilia Dahl, head of Oxford's Pedestrian Association, recognises the value of e-bikes but wants them reclassified to stop them zooming around on pavements. Yet they're already classified as bikes, so they're not actually allowed to do that. It's the enforcement that is lacking.
It really depends on everyone behaving well, and that is not always a given.
This was said near the start of the episode, and right at the end he says he's been won over by e-bikes.
I can really see their value. They're a good thing.
So if you've been won over, why are you still releasing a 29-minute video with 27 minutes of negativity? You clearly think they're great, but because the episode seems to have been edited in real time, you didn't get a chance to fight for the thing that won you over. You just boil it down to a little sentence at the end that you think sounds cool.
In the absence of clear and enforceable rules on what's legal and what isn't, then chaos might well be coming our way.
Don't try to be Clarkson, this is Panorama. Give your audience more pros of e-bikes. After all, you do need balance to ride a bike. Let us know what you liked about them after spending a week on one, unless you didn't. We've got the news to tell us all the bad stuff. You could have talked about the great environmental effects of e-bikes. You could talk about e-bikes compared to cars and how supercars reaching 200 plus miles per hour are actually legal. Superbikes that go well over 100 miles per hour are totally legal, and you can hear them going that fast. Yes, you need insurance, but insurance doesn't prevent deaths, nor does it prevent people stealing them and joyriding, or even stealing slow cars and joyriding. Slow cars that can still do 90 miles per hour and weigh a ton. You didn't even mention e-bike fires. If you buy a bike with a dodgy battery or use a charger not meant for the battery, then that's a recipe for disaster. You could actually blame the e-bike for that. You could have mentioned that mining the lithium needed for the batteries is bad for the environment, but it was the same point over and over. The wrong people on an e-bike can hurt people. Something that applies to literally everything ever. The wrong person with a Savloy could give themselves a gout attack. That end point of the episode should have been the halfway point. Show us some people who used e-bikes to improve their life. But no, it was e-bikes are bad, e-bikes are bad. You know what? I quite like them. The end. And I think that's all I have to say for now on the matter. Please do have your say by leaving your comments below, and also let us know if you made it all the way to the end of the video. If you think your interest in e-bikes has been piqued, then do hit that subscribe button and check out the other videos on the channel. I really appreciate you listening to me ramble. Being a boy, I didn't make a plan before I wrote this, so I do apologise if it was a bit haphazard. If you enjoyed the discussion, then do leave us a thumbs up. Again, I don't have anything against Adrian Charles. I think he's a decent presenter and he's a local lad, but feel free to thumb us down if you disagree with anything or whatever reason you want, really. If you'd like to get involved in more e-bike discussion, click the screen now to watch a playlist of my other e-bike discussion videos. But thanks for watching, and until next time, road, saddle, arse, the end. Right, so.